Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Nick Molina of the VaporFi franchise opportunity. And VaporFi, a leader in the e-cigarette and vapor industry, is on a mission to change the way you smoke. I'm going to go right into our interview with Nick Molina.
Started in early 2010, January 2010 to be exact, and, and 5.5 years isn't typically a long time in business, but in this business, it is. It's really the early days of vaping, the very early days of vaping. And we launched with our first brand, which was South Beach Smoke, and it was an online only strategy. We like to say we had 1 foot in, 1 foot out in the business at that point, because the FDA was challenging the importation of electronic cigarette products into the U.S. and the use of them.
Right.
We're trying to classify them as medical devices, and there was a court battle going on between one of the larger vape companies at the time and the FDA. The FDA ended up losing that and losing it at the appellate level, which opened up the doors for us to say, okay, this is now a business that has just eliminated a tremendous risk in terms of its viability. And we're all in now, and at that point we really ramped up. We started branching out into manufacturing our own products, distributing them, selling them through authorized retailers, as well as continuing our online growth strategy. And
that's great.
Yeah.
When did you know, Nick? At what point, that it was franchisable? I mean, I know that. You guys have worked with Franchise Creator. But at what point did you know that you can franchise this concept?
Well, so fast forward to early 2013, and the FDA, as part of their, the mandate that came down, which was that they could not regulate it as a medical device, but they could regulate it as a tobacco product. Ironically, even though there's no tobacco in it. But there was a lot of fear about where the product would be available for sale, whether online was a business that was going to be around or not. And our business being so heavily concentrated online, we felt it was necessary for us to mitigate that risk, and we felt that if online sales were restricted in any way, that brick and mortar stores were going to have a huge opportunity. So we thought that we needed to get our feet wet in the brick and mortar space, the vape shop space, and we opened up our first 2 stores at the end of 2013 in November of 2013. And, the idea was, let's operate these stores. Let's see what kind of success we have. Let's build a box economic that makes sense, and see it tested and see if it works. And, we quickly realized that it did work. And I would say that Q1 of 2014, we realized that this is something that had multi-store appeal to us. And, in a space where there was so much competition and so much rapid growth, in order for us to be a market leader, in order for us to be the Starbucks of the vape industry, we were going to have to go the franchise route, because we just weren't going to be able to open up stores on our own. Without the help of franchisees. So to answer your question, I think Q1 of 2014 is when we realized that we had the makings of a strong franchise opportunity here.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm a big fan of this industry. As a former smoker, when I heard, about the whole vapor thing, I was really excited, because I have to admit I hated giving up smoking. It was really difficult to do. So once I heard about the whole concept, and this was, I guess you're right, going back 5 or 6 years ago, and I remember trying my first one, and it was just okay at the time. You know what I mean? It was new, and there was problems with the batteries and things like that. And it's amazing how the industry over the last 5, 6 years, has really evolved with technology, hasn't it?
It really has. Technology's played a great role, not only in the way we sell our products and make them available and operate our business, but more so in the evolution of the product itself. You've seen the improvements firsthand.
Oh yeah.
And even the look of the device has changed dramatically over the last 5 years, specifically over the last 24 months. It just seems like every quarter there's new innovations out there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the biggest task that we're tasked with internally is to make sure that we stay in front of technology and this this evolution, product evolution, so that we're able to offer consumers the products, the latest and greatest products that they're asking for. And when you're running multi-store retail, you know the challenges associated with that. You need to make sure you're buying right, you're not overbuying inventory, and so you're not writing down huge amounts of inventory. And then we seem to have a pretty good we've had some pretty good success in doing that.
That's great. If you guys were at a franchise show, Nick, and and someone came up to your booth and they said, the typical question always seems to be, so what do you guys do? I mean, how do you typically respond to the question?
We're in a business that's projected to do $7 billion globally this year, domestically pushing $3 billion, and it's growing at about 30% a year. So we help smokers find a better, smarter alternative.
Yeah.
And we're at the cusp of this industry. So imagine being in the early days of the Starbucks revolution or the video store franchise revolution. That's kind of the position that we feel we're in today. It's a new retail concept in a very high growth sector that is highly profitable, with healthy margins, and we're doing something that we think is good, that feels good.
And I think that's important too. You know what I mean? Is at the end of the day, to say that you are doing something good in addition to making money. And it's amazing with the numbers how it's up to, I guess, $7 billion globally, Nick. I mean, that's incredible. How if you look at the growth over the last 5 10 years in this particular category, it is amazing how it's growing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, 7 years ago it was zero.
I guess you're right. It was pretty much nothing at the time, right? I mean, there really wasn't that really alternative out there, and now it's people are starting to understand it. So I think that's great. What's one of the questions we like to ask our guests on the show is what's been one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since launching this whole concept?
I guess it really has to do with, the launching of our brick and mortar concept. To see something, to make a complete pivot from a company perspective is typically not easy. We were doing tens of millions of dollars a certain way in revenue, and we saw a shift coming, and we got ahead of it, and we pivoted pretty darn quickly. And to see that not only be executed successfully, but see success after we executed it, and see it develop, see it grow, and see it improve, I think it gave us a tremendous amount of confidence. I think it gave us a tremendous amount of respect in the business. And it was just neat to watch, it all happened in such a short period of time. It was an idea in June of 2013, and we had was open in November of 2013. I mean, that's a pretty quick pivot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. The majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring entrepreneurs, Nick. I mean, most of them have it in their mind. They want to get into franchising. What characteristics do you look for, or will you be looking for in your franchisees?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think probably one of the most important things is the person needs to have an entrepreneurial spirit. Doesn't mean they've had to do something entrepreneurial in the past, but they have to have that spirit. They have to have that bug in their tummy. They need to be able to want to be independent and take on risks as needed, mitigate those risks, which is kind of what you do with a franchise, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and so we're looking for somebody that's got that entrepreneurial bug. We're looking for somebody that has had success at some level in their life. It doesn't have to be in their own business. It could be in the corporate world. It could be in their personal life, raising their kids and their families. Somebody that's tasted success, likes it, and wants more of it. So that's important for us. A good work ethic is definitely important for us. We're not looking for those guys that are just looking to write a check and sit back and build it and it'll come. I mean, you got to work it. You got to work it. You got to get engaged. You got to. It doesn't mean you can't be a an investor type person that has a good team with him, but we want you engaged at some level. It doesn't mean that you're going to be opening your store on a daily basis or visiting the store on a daily basis, but we want to make sure that you're at least looking at the numbers and paying attention to what's going on in your business.
Yeah, I think that's a great description of the characteristics, and I'd probably even say, it's someone interested in getting into this industry as well. It's not easy for, I guess I would like to say someone like myself to say, okay, well, I'm going to go into the vapor industry. I mean, it's not really something you can do on your own. I mean, you've been through a lot of the trials and tribulations to get to this point, you know what I mean? So you don't have to make the same mistakes. So somebody getting involved, with International Vapor, it's so much easier. They can avoid all those roadblocks, can't they?
They really can. I mean, when you open up a VaporFi store, you are. I think you're getting a deal because you are going to avoid very costly mistakes.
Exactly.
You're going to avoid. You're going to pay in terms of a franchise fee and royalty a lot less than the mistakes you would make. If you didn't go the VaporFi franchise route. We've made those mistakes. We know what they are.
Right.
Even if you look at even just the buying power that we have because we manufacture our own products. If you go out and buy comparable products to resell in your vape shop, you're going to end up paying more than what you're going to be able to buy our products for.
Yeah, I think that's well said. That's fantastic. What's the
values?
Yeah, what's the training like, Nick? I mean, once somebody decides, they say, wow, this is great, and you come to an agreement. Is there some type of training? I mean, do they come down to Miami? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's an initial training, and then there's ongoing training that just continues ongoing.
Right.
Yeah, so the initial training, so what's going to happen is you're going to come down, and you're going to spend about 3 days down here in Miami. You're going to do a couple of days of classroom training. That's going to be broken down into actual product training, our product, how to use them, and so forth, how to recommend them. There's going to be the operations training, how to bring up a sale, how to check your inventory, how to look at your KPIs or key performance indicators and see, see where there may be signs of trouble, where there may be room for improvement. We're going to work with you on that, identifying those. And then the last day, the third day, is actually spent in a store, one of our company-owned stores. We've got 11 company-owned stores, so we'll spend it in one of our company-owned stores, actually working behind the counter, talking to real customers, watching our staff talk to real customers, letting you yourself talk to our customers. So it gives you leave here after 3 days with a pretty good understanding of all the different things you need to do. You need to continue to work on that, and you're going to leave with a lot of material. We expect you as a franchisee to continue to absorb that material and absorb that information. And then when it's opening day, we're going to fly out, and we're going to spend a couple of days with you on your grand opening. We're going to be in the store with you. We're going to talk to customers with you. We're going to stay there until you feel like you've got your hands around this pretty good. And then we're going to leave, and we're going to leave you alone for 15 days. And, for some people that's great. They can't wait for us to leave, and for some people it's a little bit of an anxiety.
Sure.
But we're going to stay in touch with you on the phone for the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to come back in about 15 days. Between 15 and 30 days, we're going to be back. We're going to be back in your store. We're going to say, okay, here's what we saw. We've been looking at your KPIs. We think you're doing this right, and this right. We think you need to look and focus more on this. Maybe your average tickets low. Maybe you're not, upselling or selling accessories as much, or maybe you're not giving customers really what they need to, provide a good customer experience. Let's focus on these things, and so we're going to fine tune you. And we'll probably spend 2 days in your store again. Then we'd typically like to come back to you every 30 to 60 days. We like to come back in, some more time with you. So it's an ongoing thing. I mean, we look at this relationship really as being totally aligned. Our success is hinged on your success.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's the whole key to franchising as well. And I guess a typical day, would be like, what's interesting I find about this industry, Nick, is that I guess a lot of the interaction with the customers is really educating the customers at this point as well, isn't it? I mean, there's probably getting a lot of questions because, as you were mentioning earlier, the technology changes and new flavors and all, sorts of interesting things are happening right now. So I suspect there's a lot of, education towards the customers, isn't there?
There's education on different levels. There's education for the first-time users, smokers
that right.
Want to make the switch to vaping that really know nothing about it other than some news reports and some occasional friend that vapes. And then you've got the folks that have been vaping, but because there's so much technology evolving in the space that new things come out, and you're constantly educating them and showing them, and it's really a neat business to be in, just because you're never standing still, and education is a huge part of the process, and it kind of creates almost a community.
Yeah,
creates a customer that comes to your store, hangs out in your stores, tries the different flavors. Wants to learn about what's coming out, what just came out, what's coming out in 2 months, what's coming out in 3 months. Have you heard about this? Have you heard about that?
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big part of the business and the culture.
It is interesting. I think I remember, getting a couple of different brands over the years, and you say, okay, what the hell do I do with it now? Like the first time you look at it, you're right, the first time user is probably like, okay, what do I do? Is it going to explode? Is it going to, I mean, so you're right, there probably are, as you say, there's different levels of questions, aren't there, in educating the customers, which I think makes it interesting for, the franchisee. So I think that's terrific. In studying your background, Nick, you came off to me as a real, entrepreneur, and, one of the things when we have guests like, yourself on the show is, what advice could you give to our listeners in their quest to buy your franchise? Because we find that a lot of them are, very confused. A lot of them just don't even know where to begin. They're thinking franchising, but they just don't know where to start. So what would you say to them in their quest to buy your franchise?
Well, I think before you dive into which franchisor you want to team up with, I think you have to look at which type of franchise do you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be in the food business? Do you want to pick something you're going to enjoy doing? Pick something that you're going to want to be engaged in. Pick something that, you're going to feel good about when you get up in the morning and going to do. So something you're passionate about, which is really kind of what's great about the vaping space, is that so many franchisees are actual customers of VaporFi turned franchisees.
Right.
Or just vapors in general turned franchisees that go to VaporFi for their franchise. So pick something. Think about it. Don't just go to Subway because they've got the most. Not that they're not a franchise, but I mean, what's the right thing for you? And only really you can answer that. So once you kind of make that determination, I think the next step to make sure you pick the right one in that space. And I urge them all to do your homework. Read that FDD. That FDD is there for your protection. Pay special attention to the management team. I mean, I think that is key.
Yeah.
What's the history of that management team? Have they done this before? Do they have a track record for success, or do they have a track record for failures? You're going to find it all out. They're going to be required to disclose all of that in the FDD. So read it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So I can ask you the next question, because you're the CEO of the company. I mean, so where do you see International Vapor in 5 years down the road, Nick?
Well, I think if you're talking about International Vapor Group as a parent company, it's one thing. If are you more interested in VaporFi 5 years from now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either or is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think International Vapor Group, I think, will continue to be an influential business company in the vapor space, and I think VaporFi will play a significant, if not the most significant, role for International Vapor Group. I think VaporFi's mission is really to become the Starbucks of vape stores. We've been called that before by the media. We take that as a huge compliment, as a huge challenge, because we certainly have a long way to go to make that happen. But we want to become the go-to source when people think about vapor products. We want VaporFi to be the pops up.
Do you see it expanding? I mean, internationally as well, Nick. I mean, because with franchising, I guess that's always possible, isn't it? To go to these international markets a lot quicker than if you had to do it on your own.
Yeah.
So do you see?
We do look at. We are looking at the international markets. We currently do have a store in Panama, so we've already explored and entered Panama. We're in the process of completing a deal in South Africa, and we're talking to a couple of different joint venture partners for Europe, different countries in Europe. So it is something we're looking at. It's too big a market to ignore, and I think VaporFi has built a solid brand domestically in the U.S., where the rest of the world is kind of taking notice and are looking to bring. There's an affinity for American brands in foreign markets, and VaporFi seems to be that brand in the vape space market that is getting a lot of attention.
That's great. How can our listeners get more information on becoming a franchisee with VaporFi, Nick? Any websites that they can go to get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have all of our information is online at VaporFi.com.
Okay.
If you follow the link on the website under the About Us, it'll take you to our franchise page.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got all sorts of information for you there, and it's going to give you a way to get it. Go ahead and reach us, get in touch with us.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Nick, for coming on the show. I think this is a great product, great franchise. So I'm going to keep my eye, because I think this is a very interesting industry as far as those industries to keep your eye on. So this is really fantastic. So I'd like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow.
Perfect. Thank you for having me, Murray. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Nick. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.